This dude's actually bastardizing his own system. And when he gets called out on it, he gets mad.
Right, we're going to actually move on because we're talking about Kurt Angle. We're actually going to be talking about the nature of five-star matches as popularized by Dave Meltzer in the Wrestling Observer newsletter. And Kurt Angle never had a five-star match. That is the thing that has been known since Kurt Angle retired. But it's really picked up steam recently as to denigrate, if you like that word. I know you're not Dutch, but I'm using the Dutch thing. The reputation or the rating skills of Dave Meltzer. So, let's talk about Bret and Shawn arguably being the best two wrestlers of the 1990s. Some would say one or both are in contention for the greatest wrestlers of all time. I'd always put Bret, but neither are in Dave Meltzer's exclusive list of wrestlers with three or more five-star matches. Bret has had two, one versus Owen at WrestleMania 10 and Austin at WrestleMania 13, and Shawn has had two, Razor Ramon at WrestleMania 10 and The Undertaker versus The Undertaker at the first Hell in a Cell. So among the wrestlers who have been part of at least one five-star match, and these are all, for the most part, multi-man matches, admittedly, are the Bushwhackers, who are actually the Sheep Herders. That was versus the Fantastics. The Big Boss Man, Sid Vicious, Giant Baba, in 94 no less, Johnny Ace Twice, EC3, along with Lars Sullivan and Velveteen Dream as well. I think they were all in the same match. I think it might have been like an NXT ladder match.
Oh, that was that North American title match. I think I don't know if they did it in Philly. That was Andrade versus Johnny Gargano.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was a big multi-man match. So a lot of people have got five-star matches Kurt Angle doesn't have. So because of the crashing of the Japanese wrestling market, there were only seven five-star matches handed out in the decade of the 2000s. 67 five-star plus matches, we should always put that on, in the 2010s. And in the 2020s, there have already been 95 five-star or higher-ranked matches in the 2020s. So in history, as of July 2024, New Japan Pro Wrestling has 97 five-star or better matches, All Japan 37, AEW 32, WWE just 19. In the entire history of WWE and AEW's not far off doubling it, tied and 19 ties with All Japan Women. WCW received 7, Ring of Honor has received 7, AAA has received 6, PWG, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, 5, TNA 3, and ECW 1.
My guess is Malenko Guerrero is the ECW 1, and then what was the TNA 1 should be the three-way dance between Daniels, AJ, and Joe. That's my guess.
Yeah, I think that was one of them. The ECW one was actually Juventud Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio Jr.
It was a good match. That was a very good match. I mean, we brought in Lucha Libre. They had Conan there at the time and a lot of other people coming through. I would do the opposite. I think what we're showing is the matches from the past had more of a five-star kind of like, viewpoint of what they drew and everything like that. I don't know. Cody and Roman, I think that's something that should be considered for the money it drew, the quality of the match, the storyline, the people that got over in that orbit of the storyline. I don't think he got much better than that in modern history, but he's entitled to his opinion with that. But here's what I would ask wrestlers, and Al's brought this up, every wrestler's brought this up. How does having a five-star man, I could be told I'm wrong because I don't know way AEW works. How much does your pay go up after receiving a five-star match? What kind of cash bonus do you get for getting a five-star match? My assumption maybe with Tony Khan, you do get bonused for getting a five-star match in AEW. That could be the truth. But what does it do? This is where it becomes very dangerous with wrestlers. Wrestlers, even myself and everybody that's gotten into the business, has an ego. You have to. You have to have an ego and believe that you can be the best at what you want to do, the best at what you dream to do. But you also have to be very hard on yourself. I do it in a joking way, but it's checks and balances to keep me honest and keep me trying to improve everything I do. These five-star match things, and I know I've heard in AEW locker rooms, they're Like they're like, what did Meltzer give you? What did he give you for a ride? It doesn't matter. Punk famously said during a recent interview, I might get the quote wrong, but I'm paraphrasing. He goes, I would rather be in a full building drawing money and get like, not a 5-star match, or do you want a 5-star match in a building that's a quarter full? Like I think it was the Ariel Helwani interview. He said that.
It was something to the effect of AEW and WWE aren't in the same business. As I say, this isn't knocking AEW, but it's sort of like a perfect example of 5-star matches.
AEW business.
Oh, I think what it's trying to do, and I'm sorry to interrupt. What I'm trying to do with this kind of mindset is tell younger wrestlers, or even wrestlers that might be my age, that it means something to them. Those 5-star matches mean nothing for your bank account, for your investments, for your retirement, for your health and safety. Because I don't want anybody going out there trying to kill themselves just to get a person's opinion, star rating, mine or anybody else's. Like if I say that was a 5-star match, but please don't kill yourself next time, that's what I would put in the asterisk. Or it really does give. I mean, Kota Ibushi is an amazing worker. Him and some people over in New Japan, I think he had some matches with Omega, as a matter of fact. And when they tagged up as the Golden Lovers, they were entertaining. They had characters, and they could also go and have very exciting matches. But how much money did those star matches or whatever Kota Ibushi versus Cedric Alexander, Cruiserweight Classic, one of my favorite matches to watch while doing cardio. Why do I watch it during cardio? The pacing, the excitement, I get my heart break, but I'm not thinking and appreciating anything. It's a stunt show. It's a stunt show I could never do. I don't have the athletic ability any of those people do, but it doesn't leave me with a lasting moment. If you ask me right now, I don't remember one spot in that match or what the match was even for, except the Cruiserweight Classic. That's it. So I would caution any young wrestler out there. It's great to have the opinion or the adulation, a positive opinion of anybody who's paid to observe the business. But they aren't going to be there to feed your family after, God forbid, you break your neck.
AEW business is down despite 32 5-star or better matches. And I think that's a good example. Obviously, there's a joke with Dave Meltzer saying, oh, well, he wasn't in the Tokyo Dome, so therefore it couldn't be 5 stars, etc. And he has given a lot of 5 stars or better to New Japan or Japanese promotions in general. But I think that really highlights the difference between Japan and the US. Because I think with Japan, it's more important. The matches are more important than the story leading up to it. I'm sure there's a lot of story leading up to it as well in various main events and big shows at Tokyo Dome or wherever else it may be. But ultimately over here, 5-star matches people just get sick of them a lot easier. Or what the Dave Meltzers or certain people on the internet, whatever, deem a 5-star or better match is. And I think AEW's found this, they put in, so many great matches on TV for free. And after so long, it just doesn't matter anymore. And you're just watching it, and as you say, you're just watching motion for the sake of motion. And at the end of it, it leaves you cold. And then you just, I might watch next week, I might not. Because you, at some point, you reach your fill. Whereas with storylines, boxing is a great example. I mean, how many, I don't know if you're a big boxing fan or UFC or whatever, but your Chuck Liddells and your Tito Ortiz, the older Brock Lesnar is a great example of somebody who just goes in there, has an aura, has story behind him, cuts great promos, punching doors because he's pissed off because Frank Mir said something that he perceived as a slight, and then you can't wait to see them smash each other. But they weren't great matches. The reason why the fans are reacting isn't because they're 5-star UFC matches. They were never match of the year. You want to see who was going to die in the ring that night, or who's or who would get redemption, and that's what keeps bringing people back.
Well, I would argue a little bit with that because the fight of the night is kind of like that Dave Meltzer 5-star thing. If Dana White feels you had fight of the night. So guys are kind of tripping over themselves trying to perform to impress Dana White for the bonus, but it's for money. It's not for the 5-star matches. Don't even give you a trophy.
I'm going to give you some more Dave Meltzer 5-star facts here about the rankings and the ratings. That being said, there's a number of huge names and wonderful wrestlers who never received the coveted, or it's coveted for some, I guess, 5-star match. Kurt Angle, the most famous. The Rock, Jake Roberts, Hulk Hogan, Brock Lesnar, Kurt Hennig, Randy Savage, Dean Malenko, Rob Van Dam, Edge, Randy Orton, Roman Reigns, Mick Foley, Triple H. And here's some real comedy for you. Bryan Danielson never had a 5-star match until he joined AEW. And where in the 2 years he's been with AEW, he's been awarded 8 5-star matches. I mean, right there and then, if somebody says, well, there isn't some sort of bias, whether intentional or not, you're on dog food, pal. How can Bryan Danielson not ever had a 5-star match, then all of a sudden he goes to AEW and he's having one every month?
You wouldn't... I dare anybody to tell me that Bryan Danielson, at the time Daniel Bryan, was ever as over as the Yes Movement going into WrestleMania 30, and then that 3-way match with him, Batista, and Randy Orton, I believe, and going over and having the ultimate WrestleMania moment. You're going to tell me that that run there is not a 5-star run paired up with a 5-star match. So I'm not biased. I have criteria. Meltzer has no criteria. He has never put out a 4 to 5 point system of this is what it's based on.
So the 5-star mold was actually broken by Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat at a house show in Landover, Maryland. That's how you spell it, because I want to say Maryland, but you say Maryland, don't you? In 1989, in among their 3-match Big Show series of the same year.
So I don't.
He's even wrong with that. He's even wrong with that. You know why? If you want to pick the Meadowlands that they don't really have footage from '84, it's supposedly the best match they've ever had. Chi-Town Rumble, that pay-per-view with Flair and Steamboat, is a close second to the number 1. 52 minutes, I believe, 2 out of 3 falls, Clash of the Champions in Louisiana. That was the best match Steamboat and Flair ever had. And it's saying something because all their matches are classics, but that was the best one.
You can argue the types like Sergeant Slaughter and Don Canodal versus, I can't remember who it was. Was it the Briscoes or someone else? I can't remember. But
yeah, I think it was Steamboat and Youngblood.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Steamboat and Youngblood. I mean, they were a tag team of some note back in the day. They were having the best matches.
I would say Slaughter versus Hogan at WrestleMania 7, but it didn't draw. They were in a smaller arena. The tickets, the security threat. But the storyline for Hogan and Slaughter at the time, I still stand by that Slaughter is the greatest heel in wrestling history.
So, as I said before, Flair Steamboat at this house show in Landover, Maryland in '89 was given 6 stars. And then that wouldn't happen again. I think there was a facetious one in one of the newsletters where Dave Meltzer gave something 600 and something stars because he loved the match so much, but it was obviously facetious in a joke. Then Okada versus Omega in New Japan, January 4th, 2017, was awarded 6 stars, and that then caused a wave of over 5 stars to be awarded over the coming years, with almost as many 5+ stars awarded than 5s. I'm going to give you a tweet that Dave Meltzer arguing with a fan 9 hours ago, as I copied and pasted it into my format. This fella, Shursky, says, I mean, not really, though. A max score is no longer 5 stars. Therefore, the scale has changed. 5 is now 77%, assuming that 7 stars is now 100%. Those matches are that much less than the 6 and 6.5 stars. That's an opinion. And then Dave Meltzer says the max score is infinity. 4.75 still means it's a match of the year contender, which it isn't, because there's already been nearly 25-star plus matches rated just in 2024 as of August 14th as we record. So how can a 4.75 compare with a 6-star? You've already rated 20 matches better, so it can't be in the running.
Just the fact we're having this kind of discussion about this argument. This is, for lack of a better term, this is a classic case of narcissism that you can never be wrong. And I didn't know he was a football fan, American football, to move the goalposts so much. It's fine. It's his right, but you're arguing with people based on your own parameters that you created over decades, and you're changing them. That's the whole thing right there. You're just trying to kind of rehash or recreate or repackage the 5-star match gimmick to be 6, 7, and now infinity. I guess if he was funny, I don't even know Meltzer, and he might be funny, intentionally or unintentionally, he should say, I'm adjusting the stars for inflation. And everybody would laugh. It's easy as that. Or just let people have their opinion. That's the whole thing. Like, everybody who says that the list I came up with, you can say that we're both idiots. We don't know what we're talking about. We're completely wrong. You can give us your 10 or 12 in the comments or in a community post. We're not going to argue or do anything. It's your opinion. I'm just giving the criteria that is as close to what I believe, the nuts and bolts and the facts on a system that this dude created, that this dude's actually now bastardizing his own system. And when he gets called out on it, he gets mad. Hey, is it just a level of projection, or I don't get it. I don't get it. It's pro wrestling. Why are we even arguing on Twitter about it?
Oh, people haven't got anything better to do. But I love a pointless argument, or I like watching other people pointlessly argue. Here's the thing, though. So originally it was 5 stars at the top, and at the bottom it was -5 stars. But an average match was always 2 stars. So in -5 stars to +5 stars, that must mean, 0 should be average then. That's a 5 out of 10 if there's a 10 ranking numbers. So really, an average match in his mind is 2 stars, which was 7 out of 10, but now it's probably like 5.87 out of 10 somehow with a decimalization out.
I wrestled side, forget who it was. I don't want to name names unless I know who it is. And there was something in the newsletter, and they came to me, and this was WWE, by the way. And they're like, oh, Meltzer like reviewed our match or something. I was like, oh, whatever. And he goes, well, he said it, quote, good for what it was. And I was happy. And they're like, why are you so happy? He said it was good for what it was. I was like, because we just had a match. So he's saying we had a good match. That's all I got. There was no storyline. There was no, you couldn't break it apart, but he was like, good for what it was. And I was like, that's great. It's a good match. I'm happy.
Is that, all right, the infinity star ratings can go to infinity now, apparently. I mean, that's the stupidest thing in the entire world. So what does any star rating mean? Anything. But here's the big thing. We're arguing about this. We're dedicating partially a show to Dave Meltzer's 5 stars or star ratings. Is there just too much credence? I mean, we don't take them seriously, really, but what percentage of people who are currently in the business working today work for a good star rating from Dave Meltzer?
Well, it seems like a lot. I mean, this is where you talk about last week's episode with steroids and stuff and how I said I'm going to be neutral and borderline apathetic about it because everybody's an adult. They can make their choice. They can do whatever they want. If you choose, as much as I try to, or other people with more experience, and, I got my viewpoint and mindset a little bit too late in the game to care about money and drawing and what goes into what I do in my profession. But if somebody chooses that's what gives them any level of satisfaction, a star rating. If you get more satisfaction off a star rating than multi-generational wealth or money or anything like that, we go back to the Brett thing. Kevin Nash has talked about multiple podcasts about how Brett was the $300,000 a year champion. He cared more about being the champ than making $1 million. He would have took less money to do that. Or actually, Kevin said he did essentially take less money to be champion. You're always going to have people, whether you dress it up as being prideful in what you do and you want to leave a legacy, or being a mark. It could be one or the other. People can choose, and people obviously choose to listen to him, to watch, to read the newsletter, and workers choose to put credence into all that. So who are we I'm in a stage of my life where you're not going to convince anybody any differently at this point in their life or career, they're already convinced. They have to learn the hard way themselves if they're going to change their mind. I learned it the hard way. You know, I wasn't into 5-star matches, but I was never going to give this dude. I don't have it in me, Dave, athletically to give you the 5-star match. So, but that's all up to everybody else, and everybody deserves. The market will decide, much like with this show. This show can go 15, 20 episodes. They can get bored. They get tired of hearing my voice. I'm sure people do. And then we'll just fade away. Or the market will decide that this show is not successful. The market over many decades has shown that there's a market to make this guy enough money to live comfortably in California for decades, the most expensive state in the United States. So God bless him.
Here's the one thing, obviously you say it's up to the person, up to the individual or individuals, whether they put credence into Dave Meltzer or anybody else's opinions as far as what is a good match and what isn't. But the one thing that it could hurt, aside from like a booker like Tony Khan, who is booking 4 great matches, in his opinion, rather than building storylines that make sense over a period of time to a big match, etc. This could stretch from indies to the biggest match. If every single person is trying to have the best match on the card, then it's almost to a point that nobody has the best match on the card because, you know, from match 1, match 2, match 3, match 4, everybody's doing the WrestleMania false kick-out finishes, and then by the end match where the people, presumably the people who the fans paid to see, are just doing the exact same thing as everybody else on the card. So in that sense, it can be damaging. Is that right or wrong?
No, it's absolutely right. And I think this is an excellent whiteboard segment for a future episode, maybe even as early as next week. I would love to explain the psychology of a wrestling card, of a wrestling show. There's psychology within the match, but each and every match is important. Even a popcorn match after intermission serves its purpose. The opening match serves a purpose. And really, in a lot of ways, these earlier matches or that popcorn match is meant to keep the people engaged, keep them interested, keep them warmed up, but not heat them up so much that they're exhausted for the main event. In other words, leaving out punches, leaving out violence, leaving out hardcore stuff, leaving out a lot of things to where you save it for the match that drew the ticket money, drew the crowds, drew the gate, and drew the pay-per-view buys. I think that would make an excellent whiteboard segment.
I'm going to put this counterpoint to you, Stevie. So, a 5-star match, you say you've got all the criteria, you know, you've got the build-up, you've got the reaction, you've got the match quality itself. Did it increase ticket sales, etc.? But here's the thing. Some might say, and it's a very, very fair question, is that, well, that must mean that Titanic or Avatar is the greatest film of all time. Because if wrestling is art, and a lot of people say that pro wrestling is an art, films are a form of art, music, that kind of thing. But Avatar drew the most, adjusted for inflation. So therefore, Avatar must be the greatest film of all time, which, in my opinion, is nowhere close. So how do you... Or McDonald's has the best burgers because they sell the most. It's that kind of argument. So where do you fall on that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because you have 2 different viewpoints. Now, people within Hollywood or acting or, you know, the people that take great pride in great acting will have a different list than your moviegoer. Like Deadpool and Wolverine is a $1 billion movie right now, and it's probably going to hit $2 billion. So it's outdrawn any other Marvel movie quickly. Yeah, I mean, they might not get the totals than other ones, but dare I say, on Marvel movies, some of them aren't that great, but drew hundreds of millions of dollars. So you got to also at wrestling, there's all these different demographics. So Russo always says casual fan, or older wrestlers, maybe Dutch has said, you have to appeal to the lowest common denominator and spoon feed people to a certain degree. You can have, you know, matches on the show that's why Nitro was so great. It had cruiserweights, it had WWE style, it had some hardcore stuff. For a while, they were doing the variety show correctly. I think that's the strength of wrestling. You might say, well, Hogan and Warrior wasn't a 5-star match, or well, let's say this. Hogan and Andre wasn't a 5-star match, but Steamboat and Savage was a 5-star match. Here's my next question. Did you enjoy WrestleMania 3? Oh, yeah. Show was awesome. Then they both played their part. I would say even there was these matches in the beginning, and then WrestleMania 8 was a double main event. So what really drew the money? Savage and Flair, which I would say that's a 5-star match. Or Hogan and Sid, which was just a different style presented a different way. Piper versus Brett for the Intercontinental title at WrestleMania 8. I can consider that a 5-star match. But would I say, well, you liked Flair and Savage, therefore you're going to shut your TV off and not see Sid and Hogan? No, you liked WrestleMania 8. So the Avatar or other movies and other things, you can put them in certain categories, but I still say tons of people watched the movie. I personally didn't like Avatar. It was too long. Like Kevin Nash says, I don't want to sit through something where I got to wear a catheter. So, so, but it's all opinion based. My thing is where we're getting into a little bit of dangerous territory is, what if there was a movie critic that could control the Marvel franchise and say, I don't like Tony Stark as Dr. Doom. And then Kevin Feige and the Russo brothers say, oh my God, this one person doesn't like Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom. We have to fire him and recast him. That's a bridge too far right there. So that's the beautiful part about this show and 100 others and anybody that has an opinion about pro wrestling. You can have your favorites and you have one. I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible, but there's things that just speak to my heart. And like I said earlier, I had to eliminate a lot of the matches that are near and dear to my heart and bring out that bias by using these 4 pieces of criteria. I had to battle myself. Oh, man, I really like Punk and Joe and ROH. That was like the 3 matches they had. That was the reason I wanted to go to ROH. I was going to wrestle Punk. I went into a place in Connecticut and he tried to throw the Polish hammer at me and I ducked and kicked. That was after the Chris Masters thing. So I have things that I could quite honestly look at and say, and Chris Daniels is a friend of mine. Joe's a friend of mine. AJ and I are friendly. I would have loved to give that match a place on the list, but it drew the same crowd at Universal Studios. It didn't draw money. I liked the match. So everybody's going to have a bias. Everybody's going to like something, dislike it, and that's the beauty of it. So I don't know if that gives a definitive answer, but I picked the ones, some of them I wanted to pick, and some of them I actually had to pick based upon the nuts and bolts.